My name is Andrew Goodliff. I'm Associate Dean of the Grad School. On behalf of the Grad School, I welcome you to the 2023 3-Minute Thesis Finals. This competition is truly the highlight of the year for the graduate school. The 3MT competition is a research and creative activity communication competition. The participants are challenged to present their thesis or dissertation in 3 minutes, and no more than 3 minutes, in such a way that a non-expert audience can easily understand the materials.
3MT is a training opportunity disguised as a competition. Students learn to present their research topics to a broad audience in ways that really emphasize the life-changing importance and potential impact of the projects that they're devoting years of their lives to carrying out.
The goal is to train students to be able to distill their complex research down to 3 minutes and down to something that a regular, educated person off the street can understand.
They're given these very strict parameters that they have to follow, and it really forces them to think about their work in a really sort of focused and articulate way.
The reason the 3MT competition focuses on 3 minutes and 1 slide is to help students get directly to the heart of the why. What we train them to do is to grab the audience's attention with this big picture, gauge the interest level of their listener, and then they can go into more detail.
These are students who are doing things that relate to the everyday person on the street, be they anywhere in Alabama. And I want these people to go away with saying, hey, no, I can see the applicability of this. This is good. This is actually furthering technology. This is helping me. We're also very grateful to our judges. As I introduce each judge, ordered alphabetically by last name, I want the judge to please raise your hand. So first we have Dr. Brian Butler, from the Dean of the College of Communication and Information Sciences with the University of Alabama. We also have Dr. Susan Carvalho, Associate Provost and Dean of the Graduate School at the University of Alabama. Dr. James Dalton, Executive Vice President and Provost, the University of Alabama. Dr. Yolanda Page, President, Stillman College. And Dr. Christine Taylor, Vice President and Associate Provost for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion at the University of Alabama. Please give the judges a round of applause. Now, a note on how these presentations will progress. So each presenter will give their presentation. This will be followed by about 60 seconds of awkward pause while the judges deliberate, and I'm looking at the judges just to see when they're finished up. So when you see that pause and I'm standing here awkwardly, you know why. Now though, the reason that you're actually here, our finalist presentations. I do really want to applaud our presenters. It takes a huge amount of courage to participate in a competition like this, and these 15 participants are truly future UA legends. I would now like to ask our first participant to make their way to the front. Our first speaker is Aditya Apreti. Aditya is from the Department of Physics and Astronomy. The title of Aditya's talk is Hunting for Magnetic Monopoles with Large Hadron Collider via the Schwinger Effect. Thank you, Aditya.
Good evening, I'm Aditya, and for the next 3 minutes we'll be talking about what are magnetic monopoles, why they could hold the secrets to our universe, and how we could discover them. We all have seen magnets around us. A magnet consists of a north pole and a south pole. If you break a magnet into 2 or even 1,000,000 pieces, you'll always have another magnet that has a north pole and a south pole. Individual poles, or magnetic monopoles, do not exist. But there's nothing in our known physics that says that they shouldn't exist. On the contrary, if they exist, they would explain why electric charges occurs in small packets. They would bring symmetry to our known theories of physics, and they're also predicted to exist in several theories of the universe. So there's enough motivation to search for them. But where do we start looking for them? The best place to start looking for them is the largest particle collider on the planet, the Large Hadron Collider. On the border of France and Switzerland lies a 27-kilometer-long tunnel, 100 meters below the surface. And inside this tunnel, they move these fundamental particles called protons to very, very high speeds and collide them. And this collision creates a lot of energy. If instead of protons, their heavier cousins, the lead ions, are used, at the point of collision, they create the strongest magnetic fields in the known universe. To get a scale of it, the magnetic field of the Earth is 10 to the minus 4 Teslas. The magnetic field produced in these collisions is 10 to the 16 Teslas. That's 20 orders of magnitude greater. And here's where Schwinger comes into picture. Nobel Prize-winning physicist Julian Schwinger stated that if you have an extremely strong electric field, you can produce electric charges, these electrons, from nothing, from vacuum. If instead you have an extremely strong magnetic field, you can produce these magnetic charges or magnetic monopoles from nothing, from vacuum. And this is what we try to do for the very first time. Our detectors are placed right at the point where these collisions happen, where these new particles would be created, where these strong magnetic fields are formed. And as these particles would be created, they would traverse through our detectors and leave traces in them. And this is what we try to measure. We analyze the data from these collisions that happened 2 years ago. And we analyze these collisions and we place these limits. These limits basically define this energy scale to which we have looked at. And although we couldn't find these magnetic monopoles so far, the Large Hadron Collider is colliding these particles as we speak at even higher energies and even more particles. And our detectors are placed once again to search for the missing piece in the jigsaw, the magnetic monopole. Thank you.
Thank you, Aditya. All right, our next speaker is Ana Belén Alvarez. Ana's talk is Silenced Voices, the reputation of victimized children in Spanish literature and cinema from 2010 to 2020. Thank you, Ana.
Did you know that between 2010 and 2020, Spain recorded approximately 400,000 child victims of violence? In 2010, Spain began counting the number of victimizations, and after conducting a quantitative analysis, I can conclude that the 4 types of crimes that most occur to minors are bullying, gender violence, sex crimes, and family violence. The data on the screen corresponds to the number of cases of each crime and serves as a reminder of a painful and often overlooked reality. My research strives to bridge victimology to the spheres of literature and film studies by exploring the representation of this social issue, analyzing 4 novels and 4 films where the central character embodies the victimized child. I aim to assess the faithfulness of these works to reality. To do so, I compiled the victimological profile of the protagonist, the symptoms, and the legal implications of the crime, and compare them to real works from psychology and law for comprehensive validation. Now, while the first-person voice comes from the literary part, the films complement my research by showing body language and the meaning behind a silenced voice. These powerful images from the films I study vividly depict the young victim's pain, agony, and fear. As a result, a remarkable synergy emerged through the strategic use of filmic methods, serving as a supplementary narrative tool. Additionally, the narratives I study primarily target young audiences, indicating an intentional effort by society to educate and sensitize children to a reality that should never be seen as a normal childhood. The traumatic experience will affect every aspect of their lives, and because their developing brain struggles to process the experiences, the psychological and other consequences may last forever. At this point, I affirm that, indeed, literature and cinema serves as mirrors, reflecting the realities experienced by these children, So this isn't just academic work, it's a call for society to reassess our role in addressing the struggles of these children. As we delve into this vital area, remember that our power to reshape society lies in the narratives we craft and the voices we amplify. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Shanook Rajapakse. Shanook's talk is How Does the Human Body Make Nitric Acid? Thank you.
A decade ago, my father had a stroke. Afterwards, he was given a drug called nitroglycerin. I was curious on how this drug worked, considering nitroglycerin is also used in the manufacture of explosives. It turns out it works by releasing a gas called nitric oxide. The biological role of nitric oxide was only recently discovered, because nitric oxide was just thought to be a toxic gas, a common air pollutant. So this turned into my research question. How does the human body make nitric oxide? Because first and foremost, nitric oxide is a superstar when it comes to cardiovascular health. By inducing vasodilation, it reduces the blood pressure and ensures smooth blood flow. This helps in maintaining normal blood pressure as well as preventing dangerous blood clots. But too much of a good thing can be bad. Excess NO has been linked to damaging healthy cells and tissues, and it's implicated in cancer growth. Nitric oxide is produced in the human body through an enzyme called nitric oxide synthase. Think of enzymes like biological machines, and its catalytic engine is the heme cofactor. Heme is composed of iron. How this iron behaves during the production of nitric oxide has remained a mystery. This is where bioinorganic chemistry comes into play. As bioinorganic chemists, we do not analyze the enzymes by itself, because enzymes are large and complicated molecules which require specialized equipment. As bioinorganic chemists, we make a much more simplified replica or a model of the active site of the enzyme, and we study them in the laboratory. This helps us to isolate and analyze the behavior of iron during the production of NO. What we have seen is an often overlooked intermediate of iron known as heme peroxo is responsible for the key step of this reaction. And certain amino acid residues known as axial ligands is important in modulating the behavior of this iron. Getting these structure-function relationships and getting a deeper understanding of the mechanism of nitric oxide synthase is key in developing therapeutics to stop this excess production of NO. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hi, our next speaker is Matthew Evans. The title of Matthew's talk tonight is Does the 2020 Amendment to Regulation SK increase the credibility of human capital disclosure in the 10K? Thank you, Matthew.
One of the fundamental questions in accounting research is the value and relevance of accounting information, particularly for investors. This is not limited to financial information. This also includes written disclosures. One of these disclosures is the 10K, an annual disclosure that all public companies are required to file with the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC. The 10K covers a wide range of information, but what I am particularly interested in is the company's disclosure of human capital. Human capital is essentially where a company will detail its treatment of its employees. What's the culture like in the company? What kind of environment is provided? Any benefits they plan to provide? Diversity initiatives? Maybe plans for attraction and retention of talented employees? But many critics of this disclosure say that it's all social washing. These companies don't mean it. They have no intention to follow through in these commitments. They're just telling investors what they think investors want to hear. Prior to 2020, this disclosure was completely voluntary. Some companies would disclose it, but there are many companies that would say nothing. However, in 2020, the SEC passed a rule. They said all public companies must disclose all human capital information that is material or important to the running of the business. I argue in the paper that during the voluntary period, when companies were voluntarily disclosing this information, that these were the companies that meant it, that had every intention of following through on these commitments. However, after the rule change, it becomes more difficult to tell who means it, who intends to follow through and who doesn't, now that they're all kind of saying the same thing. I measure the amount of human capital information that's disclosed by using a combination of machine learning techniques to find clusters of words that indicate companies are talking about their human capital. And I count every time these words show up in these companies' 10Ks. I also argue in the paper that the best way to determine if a company is following through on its commitments is to look at the decisions they make during times of financial difficulty. So I limit all of my main analyses to revenue decreasing years, and I look to see if companies with higher levels of human capital disclosure, whether they're more likely to hold on to or retain their employees during these difficult times. I find two interesting results. First, I find that companies that disclose a lot of human capital information during the voluntary period, they are much, much more likely to hold on to and retain their employees during these difficult times. However, after the rule change, I don't find any difference between the high and low disclosures of human capital information. This may provide evidence that the SEC rule change had the opposite of its intended effect and may actually have reduced the usefulness of these human capital disclosures for investors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next speaker is Patricia Matthew. The title of Patricia's talk is Food Insecurity on Campus. Thank you, Patricia.
The University of Alabama is home to 18 national championships, some of the country's most vibrant Greek life communities, and 10,000 food insecure students. My research looks at surveys that were sent out in 2019 and 2020 to understand how students are interacting with their campus food landscape. We had thousands of responses, giving us a really granular picture for where students are buying groceries, if they have any allergies, and a whole host of other food-related factors. Part of our survey asked a series of questions that the government developed to assess food insecurity. Food insecurity is different than hunger, which is the physical sensation of not having enough food, like the pain in your stomach. Food insecurity, on the other hand, is a broader term that talks about the psychosocial problem about not having a consistent and reliable way to get enough food for a normal lifestyle. And according to our survey, 1 in 4 UA students are food insecure. And when I try to talk about this with people, it's really hard for them to wrap their heads around it because we don't have a good cultural model for what food insecurity looks like in college. Realistically, it's probably not starvation or malnutrition, but that doesn't mean it isn't impacting students' academic work, their health, and their well-being. So if you're sitting here trying to picture what this looks like at Alabama's flagship campus, here are some real examples of people that responded to our survey. It might be a graduate student that just moved to Tuscaloosa. Their first month, they receive a half stipend of about $800, and they know more money's on the way. They're still eating 3 meals a day, but they've significantly reduced their portion sizes, something 12% of UA students do. Or it might be a first-year student who actually comes from a wealthy background, who has an unlimited meal plan as a part of their dorm pass, but who has a disability, and the dining hall closest to them closes at 6 p.m. If they miss that window, it's just too challenging to trek across campus. Food insecurity absolutely cleaves along lines of material poverty, and our low-income students are most at risk. But it also has to do with the built environment, food preferences, and a whole host of other factors, which is what makes our really rich data set uniquely positioned to understand what's happening on our campus and start working towards solutions. I'm really thankful for the students and faculty and administrators that I've been able to work with in this process to try to understand what's happening, because 10,000 students is far too many. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Our next speaker is Seth Butler. The title of Seth's talk tonight is Striking a Match, a study of entrepreneur-mentor fit. Thank you, Seth.
About 28% of entrepreneurs have a mentor who helps them run their business. These mentors might provide instrumental support in the form of providing practical feedback and guidance on how to better run the business. They might provide emotional support in the form of acting as a friend and reducing some of the stress associated with business ownership. And finally, they might help avoid some of those common setbacks and hurdles that are common to entrepreneurial ventures along the way. Mentorship is a key component of many stories of famous and successful entrepreneurs, such as Richard Branson. So if you read a biography or hear an interview featuring Richard Branson, Steve Jobs, anybody like that, they'll often include the input and impact that their mentors had throughout their entrepreneurial journey. And so sort of seeing this and picking up on that, a variety of large state-sponsored formal organizations have popped up to support small businesses and encourage small business success, in part through the avenue of mentorship. And these organizations have a great mission supporting small business success and encouraging entrepreneurs, and a great avenue to do so through the avenue of mentorship, but they often operate without evidence-based practices, especially when it comes to matching. One author has said that SCORE, which is the United States' largest provider of small business support and particularly mentorship for small businesses, operates with little to no guidance in the selection of their mentors, the selection of their mentees, and how to match the two together. This is the area where I focus my research on entrepreneurial support, and specifically with matching entrepreneurs to mentors. My survey comes from the Alabama Small Business Development Centers, which are organizations that aim to support small business success in the state through providing mentorship, training, and workshops for entrepreneurs within Alabama. I'm specifically asking entrepreneurs and their mentors questions about how the two fit together in terms of similarity and dissimilarity, the types of support provided in these mentorship relationships, and how these types of support translate to progress on venture goals and small business success. My hypotheses and research questions come from two key theories in the field, mentor-protege theory and social identity theory, as well as my own practical experience from working for the University of Alabama's Entrepreneurship Center, The Edge. My data collection is ongoing and will complete in April of next year, and so I only have partial data to report on, but I do have some exciting news to share with you. My initial results have shown that fit does matter. So the types of entrepreneurs and the types of mentors that they're paired with impact the types of support provided in these mentorship relationships. I do not yet have the data to show how these different types of support translate to types and amounts of progress on different venture goals for the entrepreneur, but the practical implications of what I have so far are important because they show that who you're pairing entrepreneurs with does matter, right? Individuals have different types of desires for types of support that they want in mentorship relationships, and there are actually tensions between different types of support provided in these relationships in some cases. So it's important to pair entrepreneurs with mentors who have the ability to provide them with the support that they need. Throughout the collection of the rest of my data, I hope to provide additional practical implications for entrepreneurs and program managers, as well as additional theoretical implications for academics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Seth. Our next speaker is Gianni Fan. The title of Gianni's talk is, How Do You Feel? Emotion, Family, and Business. Thank you, Gianni.
Welcome back from Thanksgiving. I hope you all had a great time with your family. Unfortunately, my friend did not. She was upset with her dad because he doesn't like her suit for work. When I heard about this, I was confused. I was like, why does he care? She said, sounds like you don't have your dad as your supervisor. You see, things always get complicated when our major source of emotion, family, gets embedded in our personal career, especially when you're engaged in this family business. That is why we want to understand how emotion influences the cohesion and conflict of a family, which in turn predicts the business outcome of family firms. So on the screen are my results after filtering and analyzing the relevant articles in a systematic way. So, emotion research in family business centers around three major themes: discrete emotions, affect valence, and emotional competency. So, as you can tell from the size of the circles, some themes are more popular than the others, and we tend to look for this in the real life. Discrete emotions is a specific type of emotion, such as fear or anger. For example, my friend's fear toward her dad and her anger towards her dad is likely going to cause more relationship conflict for her in the workplace, which in turn causes potential damage to the family firm. Affect valence is the positive and negative feelings you have. So the negative feeling coming from my friend's fight with her dad is likely going to make her more easily exhausted at the workplace, which in turn influences the overall performance of the family firm. Emotional competency is our ability to express and regulate emotion in a social context. Imagine my friends fight in the office. This fight may not just happen because my friend knows how to suppress the inappropriate emotion at work to maintain the cohesion and workplace climate. So that is how emotion influences family firms, but everything goes back to the family level. We all have people who we love and people who love us, but that doesn't grant us the privilege to ignore their emotional needs. So what should my friend do with her dad? And how can we better understand the emotion of our loved ones? Time to figure it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Gianni. Our next speaker is Atta Razak. Atta's title is Upcycling Waste Plastics to Filters for Water Purification. Thank you, Atta.
Hello, everyone. Plastic pollution has significantly increased in the past few decades. In 2016 alone, around 2 billion tons of plastic waste was generated globally, and this number is expected to increase to around 2.6 billion tons by 2030 and to a further 3.5 billion tons by 2050. Therefore, there is an urgent need to mitigate this plastic pollution problem. Currently, plastic waste is either being incinerated or simply dumped into landfill sites, which poses serious health and environmental concerns. For instance, incineration releases harmful and toxic gases into the atmosphere, causing environmental pollution. Landfilling occupies a lot of space, releases toxic chemicals into the soil, and also leaches a large fraction of this plastic waste into aquatic bodies such as seas and oceans, where it kills fish, turtles, and adversely impacts the marine organisms. Then, these plastics also enter into the human bodies through food chains, negatively impacting vital human organs. So the question that arises here is that is there a better solution to this plastic pollution problem? And the answer is yes, and it's called upcycling, which is defined as the process of converting low-cost waste materials to beneficial high value-added products. For instance, you can convert this plastic waste into shoes. You can fabricate t-shirts out of this plastic waste, and you can even upcycle it into jewelry and many other useful products. What I have done in my research is that I have converted, rather upcycled this plastic waste into water filters. Why water filters? This is simply because clean water scarcity is the biggest global challenge in the current era. Around 771 million people around the globe suffer from lack of clean drinking water, which includes adults and children and everyone, which leads to several dangerous diseases such as typhoid, diarrhea, hepatitis, and numerous other dangerous diseases. Therefore, I have converted or upcycled this plastic waste into water filters that efficiently and effectively convert brackish, dirty, contaminated, and polluted water that may contain microorganisms such as bacteria, chemicals, dyes, and other toxic substances into clean, safe, fresh, and pure water for drinking. And by doing all this, my project provides a promising solution to two of the greatest global challenges, plastic pollution and water purification, simultaneously in one go. Thank you.
Thank you, Atta. Our next talk is by Braden Hall. Braden's talk is titled Redefining Flirting. Thank you, Braden.
Flirting has gotten a bad rap. When we think about flirting, we think of cheesy guys in bars, sleazy pickup lines, and mind-numbing get-to-know-you conversations. But flirting is so much more than that. Flirting is a foundational aspect of human interaction and communication, and one that can have tremendously positive psychological and social outcomes. But in order for us to view flirting in this positive light, we have to redefine it. And that's what I've done with my research. We redefine flirting to encompass a wide variety of behaviors and interactions to playfully enhance a wide range of different relationships. And once we do that, we start to see flirting emerge in crazy places. We start to see how people can flirt at work, at home, at school, or with strangers in the supermarket, keeping in mind that flirting doesn't have to be romantic or sexual. The way we do this is by simply asking people. We ask them how often and how well they flirt in a variety of different contexts. We ask them how well they flirt at school, how often they flirt with strangers, how well they flirt with people in their home. After we do that, we implement what's called a triad-based approach, which really just means we ask two of their close friends to rate how often and how well they flirt as well. So we ask them, how well does your friend flirt in this scenario? How often does your friend flirt? And what this yields is the largest data set of flirting results and flirting outcomes to date. We have 945 participants providing us with rich data to examine. And once we do that, we add in some different outcomes and different predictive variables. And what we find is that individuals who flirt well and flirt often in one scenario, like with an old lady in a waiting room, flirt well often in a classroom, or when it really matters with a romantic partner. We also find that individuals who flirt well and who flirt often report higher quality platonic friendships, meaning that flirting doesn't have to be romantic or sexual. Flirting can simply just be fun, and you can flirt with your friends to strengthen the bonds of friendship. What we also find most impressively and surprisingly is that individuals who flirt well and flirt often report higher overall life satisfaction. This is because flirting is a medium through which to communicate a host of positive qualities such as humor, confidence, social skills, and risk-taking. So when you leave here tonight, flirt with someone. It might just be good for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Braden. The next talk is by Jamie Tedderin. Jamie's talk is titled Auditor Experience. Thank you, Jamie.
Auditors serve an important role in the financial system. They act as a fail-safe against financial meltdown, a last line of defense between fraudulent financial information and investors. In the early 2000s, we witnessed some of the largest audit failures of all time. When Enron and WorldCom collapsed, billions of dollars were lost and a combined 100,000 jobs were destroyed. Audit quality must be protected to prevent future financial meltdowns. However, the relationship between an auditor and their client firm is complicated. A firm hires an outside auditor to provide assurance that their financial information is correct. So the same people who are paying the auditor are the people the auditor is in charge of keeping in check. Due to this complicated relationship, audit quality varies. Prior research has investigated which auditor characteristics separate the successful audits from the failed ones. However, this prior research has been limited by data availability. Now, researchers have access to new, more granular data on audit partners. These are the people who are on the ground, leading the audit, making the day-to-day decisions. My research uses this new data on audit partners to construct a more precise measure of auditor expertise, which matches better an auditor's specific experience with a client's specific needs. When an auditor begins work on a new client, that client will have a variety of accounts. Each one will need to be analyzed, tested, and verified by the auditor. Now, some of those account types will be very common ones that an auditor likely has experience with, but others will be more unusual. And those unusual accounts are the ones that are more difficult to audit, and the ones that are better captured by this new measure of expertise. This measure, I find, is associated with a lower likelihood of audit failure, that disaster that we all want to avoid. It's also associated with better audit efficiency. That is, the partner is able to work not only more effectively, but also complete the work more quickly, which saves investors money. As we continue to investigate auditor characteristics and determine which ones separate the successful audits from the failed ones, we work to strengthen our financial fail-safe and prevent another financial meltdown. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Swanali Chatterjee. Swanali's talk is titled From Gut to Brain, How Dietary Molecules Resolve Neuroinflammation. Thank you, Swanali.
Imagine, you are 70 years old, you have forgotten what you ate just an hour ago, you have frequently shivering hands, problems in walking and moving around, and you even cannot sleep at night. You are diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, presently which affects more than 10 million people worldwide. The doctor advises you to have a list of medicines, but the situation worsens every single day and you have lost all the motivation to live. You are also advised to have a regular diet rich in fruits, vegetables, herbs, and spices so that you can expect 20 more healthy years even with Parkinson's disease. You wonder, how does that even matter? Now pause, because that is where it exactly matters, and that is where my research starts. As a matter of fact, our neurons are constantly getting damaged as we age, which leads to a buildup of sterile inflammation. And there are tons of neurological data that says a plant-based food can actually help resolve that inflammation and prevent Parkinson's disease. But we do not exactly know how that food functions. So to decipher the working mechanism, I am working with a special class of plant-derived molecules, which I call the dietary soft electrophiles, just because they are highly reactive, electron-loving species and are omnipresent in our regular diet. For this, I use the common fruit fly as a very low-maintenance model organism as a proxy for my human subjects. I first feed the flies with my molecules and then manifest symptoms of Parkinson's disease with the help of a very harmful toxin. And then I analyze if my molecules are actually able to help the flies survive even with Parkinson's disease. So far, I've seen that these molecules increase the health span, reduce the mobility defects, and even activate immune responses on induction of the harmful toxin. I've also seen that my flies, which are females, are a little better than the male ones because they actually produce more of the anti-inflammatory molecules. So I conclude that these molecules actually make their way from the gut to the brain. So let's reimagine ourselves in our 70s again. You and me, a plate full of fruits and vegetables, no medicines, and most importantly, no fear of dying early, even with Parkinson's disease. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Swanali. Our next speaker is Kudus Adebayo. Kudus's talk is titled Representation of Second Language Writing and Writers in Academic Discourse. Thank you, Kudus.
That's me in the center. Yoruba is my native language. I learned English in school and picked up Nigerian Pidgin from my environment. I can write in these 3 languages, but what do you call me? Do you call me a non-native or a multilingual writer of English? These labels did not matter to me until graduate school, when I started engaging with scholarly works within the field of second language writing. I saw that scholars have different ideas about the ways we second language writers learn to write, the quality of writing we produce, the way we are taught, and who we are. And these ideas change over time. For example, because the term non-native writer could present us as deficient compared to the native writers of a language, I see more recent studies using the term multilingual writers to highlight our ability to write in multiple languages. If this shift in terminologies is happening, then there must be a kind of change in the way scholars are thinking in the field. Then I thought, how have scholars' ideologies and descriptions of second language writing changed over time? This is the main question that my thesis will seek to answer. As a foundation for my work, I thought about how our language use is never neutral. The ways we use language can reflect and be influenced by our worldviews. To answer my research question, I have compiled 28 years of articles from the Journal of Second Language Writing. With the aid of text analysis software, I will analyze the data to see words that are increasing, decreasing, and stable in use. I'll also account for how these words have been used, particularly how they reflect second language writing scholars' ideologies over time. I'll also examine the historical, cultural, and social factors responsible for these changes. Preliminary analysis of my data has shown that between 1995 and 2022, the frequency of the word non-native decreased by about 50%, while the word multilingual increased by a staggering 2,000%. This finding reflects the field's increasing attention to the diverse, non-binary linguistic identities of writer. My research is significant because it is the first of its kind that will look at second language writing scholars' ideologies, particularly as reflected in their language use. It is also important because the findings from this study can show how our understanding of second language writing has changed over time, and this knowledge can help inform teaching and learning practices. It can also bring attention to how our language choices as researchers can impact not only our field, but also society at large, thereby calling for more inclusive and careful use of language in academia. Thank you.
Thank you, Kudos. Our next speaker is Natalie Hedberg. The title of Natalie's talk is K-pop Girlies, an investigation into photo card collecting. Thank you, Natalie.
2 years ago, my bestie and I flew across the country to see Korean pop boy group Bangtan Sonyeondan, or BTS. We waited in line for 9 hours to get photo cards. What made this photo card so special? For me, it was a physical representation of love for a group that brought me both joy and community. So let's discuss K-pop Girlies, an investigation into photo card collecting. From Frank Sinatra to the Beatles, young people have been showing devotion to pop idols since pop music's inception. But Korean popular music, or K-pop, offers a unique glance into this global fandom phenomenon. K-pop groups differ from Western groups in location, language, training, and how they release music. K-pop artists release an album every 4 to 6 months. The physical copies of these albums are styled like a book and include many goodies like posters, postcards, stickers, and photo cards. Photo cards are credit card sized and feature a concept photo like J-Hope or a selfie like Suga. The collection of these photo cards is an essential part of K-pop fandom culture, but remains unstudied because the amount of in-group knowledge accumulated by fans is vast. Who are these fans? They're girlies. While traditional boy band fans have been pejoratively labeled as teeny boppers or fangirls, girly reframes and neutralizes the word girl with its IE. As Ba in 2022 stated, essentially, if you can group people together, they can be girlies. All of this information culminates to my research question. How are K-pop girly fan practices shaped by photo card collecting? I'll answer this using a dual methodology of phenomenological qualitative interviews and autoethnography. As Jenkins in 1992 articulated, in order to be an effective fan studies scholar, you need to be an academic and a fan. By utilizing semi-structured interviews, seeking rich descriptions about the K-pop fangirly experience, I have already encountered a myriad of opinions about communication, diversity, capitalism, and youth. With the autoethnography about my own experiences collecting these photo cards and my interactions interviewing these girlies, I seek to recognize what makes K-pop collecting so meaningful. Through this research, I hope to understand not only how this community functions, but how the collecting of these photo cards offers unique insight into the communicative practices and validity of fangirlies.
Thank you, Natalie. Our next speaker is Andrew Bonacci. The title of Andrew's talk tonight is Shark Skin Denticles to Reduce Separation. Thank you, Andrew.
Aerospace engineers have looked to nature for inspiration ever since mankind first watched birds in flight. More recently, we're able to look for inspiration not only in the sky, but beneath the sea. Fluid moving around a fish body will behave very similarly to air moving around a body in the sky. I'm looking specifically at shark skin. Now, sharks have had 400 million years to evolve and adapt to their environment. And through this time, they've been able to develop several evolutionary assets. One of these assets takes the form of microscales across the shark's body. These scales work to bristle up and inhibit and reduce a flow phenomenon known as separation. But what is separation, and why do we care about that? let's imagine a shark swimming through the ocean. As fluid passes over the shark's body, around the widest portion by the gills, that speed of the flow will increase. As it tapers off towards the tail, the speed will decrease. This creates a pressure difference, high at the back, low in the middle, that wants to force low momentum fluid along the skin of the shark, the wrong direction. This reversing flow leads to what's called a separation bubble, and it can lead to increased pressure drag, not only for sharks, but for any body that experiences this phenomenon. So how do shark scales combat this? Well, sharks have 200 micrometer scales that consist of a crown connected to a thin stem that anchors it into the skin. These scales all can passively bristle up to a maximum angle depending on where they're seated on the animal. The places with the highest bristling angles exist behind the gills, at the back of the tail, and at the back of the fins, the same places we would expect separation to occur. And indeed, we see separation control testing samples of skin from these places. But I can't see what the scales are actually doing in these places. So I've constructed a 3D printed model of 9,000 shark scales that all individually bristle in reversing flow. When they encounter this, they bristle up and the flow is forced into cavities between these scales and recirculates. As the scales are pushed back down, this fluid is injected back into the core backflow and mixes momentums. This momentum mixing reduces separation. Understanding this, we will be able to create some sort of surface that replicates shark skin that can actually help the performance of our sea and aircraft. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Our final speaker tonight is Long Lee. The title of Long's talk tonight is Safety Gloves Detection for Improved Safety. Thank you, Long.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Long Lee, and the topic I'm going to present today is about safety glove detections. So before I jump into my project, let me share some information with you guys first. Do you know that in each year, there are a lot of hand-related injury happened in the construction site? And 70% of those can be avoided if you wear safety gloves. So the construction company set up a lot of rules and policies to force their worker to wear safety gloves. But the investigation shows even under those policies, there are still more than 1 million construction workers suffer from the hand-related injury in each year. Why? It's simple. Because humans make mistakes. Sometimes you just forgot the rule and the accident happened. But the machine will never forget. So this motivated us to launch this project. We want to develop a real-time safety glove detection system to help avoid this kind of accident. So we got a chance to cooperate with the construction company, and we set up a few high-resolution surveillance cameras around the construction site. The first effort we made is we built a new data set, and we trained a new model dedicatedly for the safety glove detections. So now we are able to detect the safety gloves. The remaining problem is how we achieve it in real time. Because give you a timely warning is also very important to avoid the accident. You may think that why don't we just directly transfer the image to the server? Well, this is impractical in this solution because the image is a high-resolution image. The data set is quite large. So you may suffer from the high transmission latency, and you cannot make it in real time. So instead, the second effort we made is we came up with an edge computing-based deployment solution. We connect each camera to an edge device with very constrained resources. And we also separate the first few layers from the detection model and deploy this small model on the edge device. So now, every time, the image will first go through that small model on the edge device, and you get an intermediate detection result. And this intermediate result already eliminates most unwanted data from the image. So after comprised by a dedicated compression algorithm, the data set is dramatically reduced. So now you can transfer it to the server and make it in real time. So combine the two efforts we made. Finally, we are able to achieve the safety glove detection in real time. So hopefully, in the future, our project will be deployed in more construction sites and help reduce the accident rate and protect the safety of our construction workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Long. I do want to give another round of applause to all the participants. The judges will now finish up their notes from the last speaker, and if I can ask Tierney, once they're done with that, to escort them to the room for deliberation. Now, for the audience, this is your chance to participate. You have the ballot sheet for the People's Choice, and I want you to fill that out, and then as you leave the room, there'll be a basket for you to put those in, and we will then tabulate those. Now, while the judges are deliberating, and while we're calculating who is the People's Choice winner, there is a reception outside, so please do take advantage of that reception. It will take probably about 15 minutes for the judges to complete their deliberations. Once that's done, we will ask all the participants to come back in the room, stand at the front, and we'll ask all the judges to come back in as well, of course. So, anyway, finish writing up your People's Choice ballot, and Tierney, if you can escort our judges, please. So typically what I'll ask here is if there's anyone you really want to advocate for.
Good evening. I'm Susan Carvalho, Associate Provost and Dean of the Graduate School, and I am here with Dallas Lampkins, a graduate student in political science, doctoral student, and president of the Graduate Student Association. And the one reason that everything runs so smoothly for this competition is the many volunteers who have been ushering you and ushering food and ushering the timetable along, and those are Graduate Student Association volunteers. So like always, they're the very busy glue that is holding all of this together. So thanks to the GSA for your participation. And I am going to say first how impressed we were, all of the judges, universally impressed with not only your courage, but your poise, your delivery. I think all of us were jealous at certain points with the rapport you were able to establish. Your mastery of the topics was without question, and we had an extremely difficult job. To sort them out. But sort them out we must, and so it will be my pleasure to announce the fourth place winner, then third, then second, then a dramatic pause for the People's Choice announcement before we call the name of the first place winner. So, congratulations for the fourth place for a presentation on redefining flirting, Braden Hall from Psychology. Many quotable quotes in that presentation. And in third place with the presentation on upcycling waste plastics to filters for water purification, Ata Razak from Chemical and Biological Engineering. That diagram will make me pause before my next drink of water, but I'm going to trust your filter. Second place, presentation on From Gut to Brain, How Dietary Molecules Resolve Neuroinflammation, Swarnali Chatterjee from Biological Sciences. The judges wanted to know what kind of life in green pastures the flies get after the research. The answer was brief. So the People's Choice Award, I know each of you are rooting for your winner, And the overall winner of the People's Choice Award is Braden Hall from psychology. That rapport you established with the audience clearly paid off.
I'll flirt with you next.
We'll talk. And finally, the first place winner of the 3MT competition at UA, and we'll be delighted to see you in Greenville with the talk on food insecurity on campus, Patricia Matthews, anthropology. So thank you again to all 15 competitors. You really are all winners. We're not just saying that. I know that your professors, so many of them are here to support you and are proud of the way you're representing your department, and they're seeing your star rise in the future. We also want to thank our judges and the many other people who made this event possible tonight, chiefly Andy Goodliff and his sidekick, Deanna Clements, who have been pulling this together with intense mapping for the last many weeks, and it all went without a flaw. We also want to give special thanks to the UA Digital Media Center for not only letting us use this amazing space, but sharing the film with community, which showcases the role that graduate students play in solving tomorrow's problems. So we're really happy about that. And finally, thank you to everyone here for coming out to support the competitors. Congratulations again to all of you.